Hello, everyone, and welcome to Co-Creation Station, the podcast where we talk about the law of attraction, the art of allowing, spiritual magic, the mind-body-spirit connection, and how to best enjoy this mystical, miraculous, mysterious, crazy, sometimes confounding, but always incredible journey we call life. My name is Collin. I'm a teacher, tarot, and oracle card reader, and I'm also a singer and guitarist in the band Red Treasure, and I'm located in beautiful, sunny North Hollywood, California.
My name is Stephanie Orlina. I am a transformational life coach, and I help people shift away from negative thinking, and it transforms their lives. And I am in beautiful, sunny San Diego, California.
We want to thank you so much for listening to our podcast. If you're listening to the audio version on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, CastBox, or Overcast, and thank you so much for watching us. If you're watching us right here on the YouTube channel for Co-Creation Station, we post a brand new episode every Monday morning, and we want to thank you so much for liking this episode, following, subscribing to, and reviewing us on your podcast platform, and subscribing to us here on our YouTube channel. These all help other people find us, and we're very, very grateful and appreciative to you for that. You can also leave us a comment on the YouTube video if you're watching us here, or you can email us, no matter how you're listening or watching, at cocreationstation1111@gmail.com. Each week we start our discussion from a different jumping off point, and this week Stephanie and I are honored and excited to have my sister, Dr. Kelly Worster, back as our guest to join us for this particular discussion. Welcome, Kelly.
Thank you.
And you're coming to us from, as always,
snowy Portland, Maine.
Yeah, in the East Coast. It's Sunday, January 30th when we're recording this. It'll be February or March when it goes live. But yeah, the Northeast United States is having a large snow event.
Well, we did. Yeah, we got a little over a foot here, I think. More, I think Boston got like 22 inches.
One of my Southern California friends that shall remain nameless texted me like, "Oh my God, are you worried about your family?" And I'm like,
"Oh, that's sweet."
Always. But what are you specifically talking about? Just kidding. All right, so Kelly, you want to kick this off? Like, we've been talking about something, off pod, and we've been saying we've been wanting to talk about this particular topic for a while, but I'll let you kick it off for us.
Well, you had asked me about to talk about the phrase "what is intended for you will not pass you by," and yeah, so I want to talk about that. Do a deep dive into that topic, and to start, I want to have Collin cue up this video that that I think will be helpful in showing the dominant paradigm, what I believe most people believe to be true, the way the universe works. So roll them.
All right.
I went through his pockets, okay?
Marie, why do you go through his pockets? You know what I found?
No, what?
They just bought a dining room table. He and his wife just went out and spent $1,600 on a dining room table.
Where?
The point isn't where, Alice. The point is he's never gonna leave her.
So what else is new? You've known this for 2 years.
You're right. You're right. I know you're right.
Why can't you find someone single? When I was single, I knew lots of nice single men. There must be someone. Sally found someone.
Well, Sally got the last good one.
Joe and I broke up
What? When?
Monday.
You waited 3 days to
You
tell
Joe's
us?
available?
Oh, for God's sakes, Marie, don't you have any feelings about this? She's obviously upset.
I'm not that upset. We've been growing apart for quite a while.
But you guys were a couple. You had someone to go places with. You had a date on national holidays.
I said to myself, you deserve more than this. You're 31 years old.
And the clock is ticking.
No, the clock doesn't really start to tick until you're 36.
God, you're in such great shape.
Well, I've had a few days to get used to it, and I feel okay.
Good. Then you're ready.
Really, Marie?
Well, how else do you think you do it? I've got the perfect guy. I don't happen to find him attractive, but you might. She doesn't have a problem with chins.
Marie, I'm not ready yet.
But you just said you were over him.
I am over him, but I'm in a mourning period. Who is it?
Alex Anderson.
Oh,
You fixed me up with him 6 years ago.
I'm sorry.
All right, wait, here we go. Ken Darman.
He's been married for over a year.
Really? Married. Oh, wait.
Look,
I got one.
there is no point in my going out with someone I might really like if I met him at the right time, but who right now has no chance of being anything to me but a transitional man.
Okay. But don't wait too long. Remember what happened with David Warsaw? His wife left him and everyone said, give him some time, don't move in too fast. 6 months later, he was dead.
What are you saying? I should get married to someone right away in case he's about to die?
At least you could say you were married.
I'm saying that the right man for you might be out there right now, and if you don't grab him, someone else will, and you'll have to spend the rest of your life knowing that someone else is married to your husband.
That's so awesome.
That is
Yeah, so
great.
that's the classic scene from When Harry Met Sally, 1989 movie. If you haven't seen it, please do. It's so, so good. So yeah, basically that's what Carrie Fisher is saying. Like, you have to hurry up before something gets grabbed away from you. And in other words, panic and don't miss a beat. And you have to be scrappy and get out there before someone else takes your dream. So I know Collin is really ready for a big debate, and I just really want to talk about, like, if that's true or not. So again, the topic is the phrase, "What is for you will not pass you by. What is intended for you will not pass you by." And Collin, you said something. I'm not sure it was during the podcast, but right after the last podcast, you said, I feel like we each have these little specialties. So Collin's very familiar and well-versed in the movie The Secret. Stephanie is very well-versed in the art of allowing and how to use the law of attraction. And I do a lot of reading into Florence Scovel Shinn, who was a metaphysicist in the early 19th century in New York City, who was one of the pioneers in starting to use the art of allowing. But she's a Christian and has and had a lot of really powerful things to say about how to use your language, how to use the power of the spoken word to make your reality, to bring about what you want. So law of attraction stuff there too. So anyway, so we each have something to bring to the table here. And yeah, I guess the first thing I just want to ask both of you is, what do you think? I mean, do you prescribe to that, to what Carrie Fisher had to say there? Or do you think it's true that what is meant for us doesn't pass us by no matter what?
Well, I think if I could start out, I mean, first of all, just to expand on what you said, I think this idea is rampant and pervasive through our culture, that there is, and it's really based on a philosophy or a belief in limitation and lack, like that there isn't enough for everybody. The metaphor that gets tossed around is like the piece of the pot that what's out there in the universe in terms of money, jobs, romantic partners, apartments, houses, whatever, it's a pie, and like everybody's taking pieces of the pie right now. So you have to go make sure you get your piece of the pie. Otherwise, if you don't, there'll be no pie left when you get there, and you won't get it, And I've seen this manifest a lot among my friends who are artistically and creatively minded and wanting to make their living from art and creativity. I've certainly been guilty of it at times, at least mentally thinking about it, is that, if they have a friend, like if there's an actor and they have a friend who's an actor and their actor gets a starring role in a big movie, there's this like thought of like, oh, that's it. Like there was one spot somehow for a successful acting career, and like that was going to be doled out to me and my friends, and my friend got it. So I'm out of luck. I might as well quit and do something else in my life. I've had that with my musician friends. Some of them, who like, they know somebody who was, a friend of theirs or someone they knew they were close to was in a band, and all of a sudden they got signed, and they're you know, on a major record label, and they're touring the world and everything. It's like, oh, well, there was one slot and they got it. And so there isn't going to be that. So, I mean, I think that the clip from the film is perfect, how Carrie Fisher's character talks about that, but I mean, it's bigger and wider than that. You know, I mean, I really feel like there's this idea out there that, like, you know, somehow there's this limited amount of things, and if you don't grab yours now, you're going to miss out on it. Which, if you really think about it and look around, doesn't make any sense. It's like,
Right.
there's an infinite abundance of everything. Like, you know, if I, you know, one of the examples that gets tossed around about money, just as one aspect of it, is like, if I have, you know, $5 or whatever, and I go to the store and I spend that $5 on something, that goes to the store uses that $5 to pay one of their employees. The employee receives that $5. They go buy gas with it. You know, the company that owns the gas station pays their employees with it. You know, that employee goes and buys, you know, something for someone, and, you know, or gives it to somebody. They put it in their savings account. The savings, they get interest over time. It actually grows to more than $5. I mean, there's just, like, it's so clearly not limited, you know, if you really look at just, you know, any aspect, but especially money. So I'm glad you brought this up. My thing is, I mean, my opinion on it is, I believe in the principle, spiritually. Abraham Hicks, who's, like, Stephanie and I talk about a lot, who is this collection of spirits that this woman Esther Hicks channels, and they speak through her. If you're not familiar with her, you can Google her and watch there's many videos of her online. But I remember one of my first things I saw about her and her husband, Jerry, actually, Jerry said that his belief was that, you know, by the end of your life, you get everything you dreamed about when you were a little kid getting. And I just thought that was, like, radical and fascinating, and, like, the opposite of what everything in our, once you become an adult, at least in the American culture these days, it's like, you know, we have all these beliefs and ideas that get passed around, like, you know, in this limitation and lack, that you won't, you know, you have to, part of being an adult is giving up your dreams and letting go of things you really wanted, and, you know, confronting reality and all this sort of stuff. So, I mean, I believe in the overall principle. I just think Abraham, there's multiple videos of Abraham speaking through Esther Hicks, where they talk about, though, it doesn't necessarily, what they've said, whether you believe it or agree with it or not, is that you don't necessarily get everything that you wanted in this physical lifetime. You can block your abundance and things you want in this lifetime. What happens when you die and cross over to the other side, or however you want to think about that, is that you've dropped all your human resistance. And so anything that you really wanted in your heart when you were alive that you didn't get because you were blocking it, just sort of magically shows up for you. Like, basically, I mean, this is a metaphor, but, like, basically, when you die, first thing that happens is you walk into a room and you get everything you ever dreamed about, you know, in this life that you didn't actually manifest. And I think that's much closer to the truth than saying that you get everything you're supposed to get in this lifetime, because I think that it is possible, although the law of attraction is always operating, it is up to us to allow. So we're always attracting things by what we're putting out vibrationally, energy-wise, with our thoughts, feelings, beliefs, whatever. But we have the ability with our thoughts, beliefs, whatever vibration, to block things that we desire from coming into our life. We can either delay them by having resistance, or we can just, like, literally believe so soundly that we are not going to get it, that we actually don't get it while we're alive. And then it makes sense to me, I can't prove this, but it makes sense to me that then once you perish and are no longer limited, because all those ideas of lack, deprivation, there's not enough, that's all mental, that's all in the human mind. So it makes sense to me that, like, once your physical human mind is no longer, you know, running your body, that then your spirit is free to just, like, allow and welcome in everything your heart desired while you're alive, and you get it at that point. But, you know, what Abraham was also sharing is, like, what Abraham excuse me, what Abraham is trying to do through their teachings, and I think what, you know, the three of us are trying to do with this podcast is help people allow more of what they want into their life before they die. You know,
including
Abraham actually
ourselves,
says,
right? Like, do you
yeah.
even believe, like, Kelly, I think this is a really good topic because I can think of several times in my life when someone has gotten something that I've wanted, and I think, oh man, I know probably when I was much younger, if I had that deprivation thinking of like, oh, or if we both want something and I'm like trying to get it before she does, or, you know, and so I think that a lot of us were raised with that mentality of like, there's only a certain amount and I better hurry up and get mine. Otherwise, if I don't, someone else gets it, then I can't. And that's why I love, especially, you know, Scoville, Shin's, Florence's work and Abraham's work and so many others, is because I get to switch my thinking of like, oh, what you said, say that again. What's intended? How does this say?
What's intended for you will not pass you by.
Yeah. And it's like, when I remember that, and I think like everything's a thought, think it long enough, it becomes a belief. And that I've had in my past when I was younger, those deprivation beliefs. And now I'm just trying to remind myself as I've gotten older and I've delved into this work more of like, oh, when I ask, it is given. It's held energetically for me. And trusting, like, I've asked, it's Spirit has says yes. It's not my job to make it happen. It's my job to allow it, trust, believe. And those are big things. Because my thoughts, I have a lot of thoughts that don't serve me. And then just practicing and trusting that it's going to come. And I know the three of us and everyone listening has a huge list of things that we all once wanted, didn't think it would happen. Maybe some of them we thought they would. And then so many of them came about. And I try to use that analogy of like, this thing that I'm wanting now, Steph, it's not that much different than all those other things. And they came about. And I didn't know when and I didn't know how, but they eventually did. And so, I mean, what about you, Collin? Are there certain things that you want that you believe in and you get, and other things that you want but you don't believe, and then they just are slow in coming?
Yeah, for sure. I guess that's what my question is. That's why I was interested in talking about this topic, as I was wondering, like, Kelly, do you believe that everything we desire we get in this lifetime somehow? Like everything that's intended for us to receive, we actually receive it before we die?
I don't know. That's intense. I mean,
right.
I, honestly, you know.
Well, thanks so much for watching and listening this week. This has been co-created.
So one of the things that, I mean, I think there are a lot of things in this topic. And one of the things that came up for me was, if you fear, I mean, I think that phrase, what is for you will not pass you by. It, for me, brings a lot of relief. And in the moment, I'm in fear, you know, sympathetic fight or flight. And I think it's, you know, I know Florence Scovel-Shinn says it, but, you know, what you fear, you will bring about. And so I need that quick shift of that's not going to happen. It's like, oh, phew, you know, and then I'm in the receptive mode.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a trick.
Yeah.
In a way, but it works.
No, and I think that's the thing. Like if someone has a hardcore belief, like they've been thinking it their whole life, they say it out loud to other people, something like, I'm never going to find a job I really like, or I'm never going to make enough money in this world, or I'm never going to, there's nobody out there who would really ever love me for who I am, you know, things like that. Then that is going to, at a minimum, delay something. I mean, and what's fascinating to me about those statements is they're the statement of the desire and the resistance all in one, right? Because you know, if you're paying attention, like if you say, well, I'm never going to find a job I really love, you know, right now, like just hearing that one sentence, that one thing that person wants in their true heart, most likely, is that they would like to have a job that they truly love. And they also have a hardcore belief that they've recorded and, you know, paved the mental roads many times in their head that like, they're not going to get that thing that they want, you know. But I guess, and so I think we can I mean, that's one of the things that bothers me about our culture is this sort of like, it's like the unfortunate, I don't know how to talk about it, but the unfortunate side of the Nike slogan, just do it. Like, I think the Nike slogan is actually really great, just do it. It's like, because if I boil that down, it just means set aside your fears, set aside your resistance, and just do what you love. Do what feels right. Do what, you know, do what's right in front of you, you know. And that I agree with, but there's also this part where some parts of our culture take that to mean it's all up to you. Like, A, there's this limited amount of stuff. B, the only people that get some of that limited stuff are the people that work the hardest, the fastest, the strongest, da, 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 da. And then if you want to be one of those people, well, then you better get off your butt and, you know, try really hard and, you know, and we've talked many times about how that is the energy of resistance.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter how hard you try to go get something with that, you'll either not get it still, or you'll get it and lose it, because you're not really believing that you deserve it and it's yours and it's intended for you and it's going to come to you. You're like, oh my God, it might not come to me, so I've got to work really hard, da 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 da. So I mean, my thing is that I think it's possible, and this is kind of sad to me, but it's possible to maintain that belief all the way to your deathbed and prevent that thing that's in your heart from coming in this lifetime. I kind of agree with Abraham. It makes sense to me, at least, that once your human brain and all that resistance is out of the way and you cross over to the other side, you're like, you know.
So why does she say that what's intended for you can't pass you by?
Florence Scovel Shinn does not say that.
She doesn't say that? Oh, okay.
But so this is what she does say. People who are manifesting the appearance of lack are in a state of fear and confusion. They are not wide awake to their good, and they miss leads and opportunities. A peaceful person is a wide awake person. They see clearly and act quickly. They never miss a trick. So there's that, again, that peacefulness, that which is a receptive mode, you know, receiving from the universe, not blocking. And being in that peaceful state helps attract what you want and not what you don't.
Or what you're the valve, opens up the releases the wall of resistance and blocking the energy. So where did you come up with what's intended for you can't pass you by? Did you come up with that?
It was given to me.
Okay.
No, it was a bracelet that was given to me, and it was inscribed on the bracelet. And I had never heard it before. I thought, well, that's kind of cool. And I just found it very helpful. Like in situations, I found it super helpful.
Who gave it to you?
An old boss mentor of mine.
I love that.
And and I don't necessarily think it's 110% true. But like I said, I think it's
why?
Because I think we're on a journey. I think it's imperfect. I think there are many different, do you remember, this is really going to date me, but I know Collin knows this, but Stephanie, I don't know. Those choose your own adventure books. Did you ever read those?
I don't think so.
Yeah, Collin and I were like into them. Like they were these little, were they sci-fi, Collin?
A lot of them centered around that. Yeah, there were different ones. There were like mystery, like detective kind of ones, but it usually, the main character was usually a teenager and caught in some unusual situation. Like they came home from school and something bizarre happened. Sometimes it was aliens, and sometimes it was, you know. Yeah. So basically, you'd read the first chapter, and it would say, if you choose to do this at this time, turn to this page. If you choose to do this at this time, choose this page. Ooh. And I don't know if there were like 2 or 3 options, but
to me, that describes our lives, because,
Yeah.
you know, and, you know, one way, it didn't matter what you chose. I mean, sometimes the ending was not as great as one of the other ones, but for the most part, it was just a different adventure. It was just different. And so I think that we get, you know, it's just like what Wayne Dyer said. Everything is predetermined and we have free will. And get over it. You know, that's a paradox, get over it.
Yeah.
Because we do get to choose. And in my opinion, we're here several times. We have several lifetimes.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's where I am with it, you know. So yes, you know, I think we choose things and we go down different paths, and it's all good. And all good doesn't mean comfortable. You know, avoiding pain, avoiding emotional pain, avoiding physical pain. But it's life, and we get to choose each time we go through what we want to do with it.
Yeah, just FYI, I've just been researching on the internet while we were talking, and the phrase "what's intended for you cannot pass you by" is not like, nobody knows exactly where it came from. It's been around for a really long time. So some people say it came from, it's like an old Scottish saying or something, but then there's multiple people sort of arguing about where it started. So there's no, like, it doesn't look like there's a hard and fast. It's not like from one author or from one book or whatever. It seems to be like an idea passed around through the years from many different people. There's several like modern authors who have said something similar to this. I'm reading one person here. It says, nothing that is meant for you will pass you by as long as you're putting yourself out there and actively seeking opportunities.
Nice.
So multiple people have said either that or something like it in a book or in an interview. The interesting thing, this person does put a quote in here from Steve Maraboli, and I actually don't know who that person is. My apologies to fans of Steve Maraboli if he's like an author or something. But his quote that this person is referencing is, "As I look back on my life, I realized that every time I thought I was being rejected from something good, I was actually being redirected to something better."
That's a great one. Which goes
That's so
back
cool.
to
I love that.
rejection is protection kind of a thing.
Yeah, and I think that's another aspect that we didn't really, I think it's completely part of this concept, but that we didn't necessarily cover, which is that although our brains are this amazing instrument and they are part of what we can use to access, you know, what's in our true heart, and, you know, like, yeah, if you're going to learn about the art of allowing by watching Abraham Hicks videos or watching The Secret or something, I mean, you have to watch that with your brain and you have to think about it and you have to, you know, so there's a process there. But I think also what this quote sort of brings out is that we can get convinced that we know what's intended for us. You know, like, I've definitely had the thought in my in my life, and this is where I thought, kind of, Kelly, you were going to go, but where I'm convinced, like, I should be doing X by this point, or I should be living in this particular city at this time in my life, or whatever. And I will think that, like, therefore my life is kind of wrong right now because I didn't do this thing by this time or whatever. Right. And then when I really look at it, it's like, oh, but there are all these amazing, wonderful things that happened that I would never want to have not happened. Like, I would never do it over so I could remove those things. Like, I mean, a good example of that is me moving to, like, in, 2012, the end of 2012, I moved to San Diego instead of Los Angeles. Now, my lifelong dream, since I was a little kid, had been to move to Los Angeles. And in looking back at that decision to move to San Diego, it was based somewhat on fear. I'd lived in New York City for a long time. I'd loved it there, but I was kind of exhausted by the big city nature of it. And part of me was like, I don't think I'm supposed to live in Los Angeles because it's like another big city, and, like, they don't have the subway craziness, but they have the traffic craziness. And, you know, so I told myself, like, I think and I really believed this at the time, that I was supposed to move to San Diego. Like when I had that dream as a little kid of living in LA, I was close, but the dream really should have been, now that I'm older, I see it really was to move to San Diego instead. So I moved to San Diego. Now, when I got to San Diego, I realized over the course of my 10 months there that I really did want to live in Los Angeles. Like, it was moving to San Diego that was actually the final piece of, once I took a trip up to LA for a long weekend, I was like, oh, no, I was right as a little kid. But that doesn't mean that my 10 months in San Diego was wrong. Like, you can look at it that way. Like, well, Collin, why didn't you just move to LA when you were 21 years old and, whatever? Like, I could have done that. But if I had never done that, like, I mean, the list of things that I would never, like, having the rock band Victor Bravo with you being the singer, Kelly, in Boston in whenever that was, 2004, that never would have happened if I'd moved to LA when I was 21. I never would have met Stephanie if I'd never moved to San Diego, most likely.
At least not. Who knows? But it wouldn't happen the way it did. Yeah,
but there's just a litany of things that, like, if I had moved to LA as soon as I graduated from high school or as soon as I graduated from college, like I had sort of dreamed of when I was a little kid, there's just all these things of like, oh, but those things were, like Victor Bravo, I was definitely intended for that. That was awesome. And then, friendship with Stephanie, I was definitely intended for that, So it's easy for me as a human looking back to go like, oh yeah, that was definitely part of the plan. But
yeah, as they say, hindsight's always 20/20.
Yeah, but if you had asked me, the human at the time, I would have been like, oh, no, And it's the universe or source or spirit or higher power or however you think about that knows I think that, for me, that's what's behind that. Whatever's intended for you can't pass you by. Is the infinite intelligence of the universe knows what your heart really wants, needs, why you really came into this world, what you really were meant to experience on this journey. And there's parts of it where the universe won't let you fuck it up. Like, I tried to fuck it up. In a weird way, you could look at it where I tried to fuck it up by moving to San Diego, but the universe was like...
it was just a detour. It was a softening. That was the best you could do.
Well, it wasn't a detour.
But it was the softening of your resistance. We're going to take you here so you can get over there. We're going to take you to San Diego so you can eventually get to LA.
Right. So our mutual friend Kate could, like, literally sit me down and go, Collin, you are moving to Los Angeles. You are going to do your dream. And I was like, okay, you're right.
Well, and I like what Abraham talks about. The universe remembers everything you've ever even thought of for a second, and remembers it all and can put it together in this perfect recipe experience of all these different things. And so, and sometimes we have those little curvatures on the journey because there's, oh, you wanted to experience this, or you needed, or you needed to strengthen this part of you, or whatever it may be. It knows deep down with what we want and need. And so all of that is valuable. But we, as in my human mind, think, like you were saying, Collin, like, oh, but I didn't go there when I was 21, and blah blah blah. It took me 10, 20, whatever years to do it. And it's like, spirit, inner being, my higher self doesn't look at it that way. Just like, you got there, and you have
thank you for doing such a great impression of me when I'm not being very smart, because it was realistic. It was very accurate. Yeah, I mean, I think, but I do want to highlight, Kelly, what you said. I think that one of the most important things for me, I think a lot of people have that experience of when they read that, if it feels true for them, whatever's intended for you will not pass you by. There's relief. And therefore, I think it's a really important thing for people to hear. But I think the relief really comes from, oh, there isn't this lack. There isn't this massive amount of wrong things and wrong decisions, or a lack of opportunities, and I'm screwed unless I go out and grab something.
There's nothing to fear.
Yeah, it's like, I feel like underneath that statement is relax and enjoy your journey. Like, you can't really fuck it up. Like, even when you fuck it up, you're doing something really great in another way that you couldn't have imagined, but the universe has already taken that into account and it's already made magic out of it. You know, Wayne Dyer, who's another author and speaker who's passed away a few years that Stephanie and I talk about a lot. I mean, he talks about his dad, because for many years he was really angry at his dad. His father, his biological father, left his mother and him, and I think some of his younger siblings. They were all very little, and his biological father just left. Like, they never knew what happened to him, you know. And years later, he found out that he just moved across the United States. You know, apparently never made any attempt to re-establish contact or whatever, and then just died, and you know, never tried to, you know, contact his family or his children or anything like that. And he, as he tells the story, he was very angry. Like, how could you do this? How could you do this? How could you do this? But then part of what he realized was that it was that event of his father leaving his mother and Wayne having to go to an orphanage temporarily when his mother couldn't even afford to take care of the children. And then her getting them back after she kind of got herself set, and going through, you know, the life that way, that gave Wayne all the amazing opportunities to learn about. It's why he became a psychologist. It's why he became a professor. It's why he started writing books. It's why he started becoming a speaker. You know, it was like the foundation of his entire spiritual journey. And he's, the way he talks about it, I mean, I'm paraphrasing and, you know, whatever, but, you know, is that like, there's a certain aspect of, you know, like if he had a conversation with his father, it'd be like, yeah, I gave you exactly what you needed and wanted, you know, like you love this life, right? Like, you love who you've become. You love what you do, right? And, you know, he would have to say yes. And he's like, yeah, you did all that because I did what I did, you know, or a lot of what you did was caused by that event. And it's easy to take it out of context and look at it, you know, in this like very specific human judgmental terms and say, well, that was wrong and you shouldn't do that. And I'm not advocating that people should, you know, leave their spouses, leave their children, but it's just that, but it's like when you look at a life journey, the point of that is when you look at a life's journey, it's that I think what Wayne Dyer, part of the anger he had at his dad was like, oh, well, I was supposed to have a childhood with a loving dad in it. I was supposed to know, like my friends at school, what it was like to have a mom and a dad happy at home. Like, I was robbed of that. Like, there was some mistake made by the universe where I was supposed to have this and it took it away from me and I didn't have it when I should have, you know? And I think what he came to understand is that, no, that's not how it works. You know, it's like pretty much everything you've had in your life, like, that's how it's been supposed to go. And all the miracles and gifts and things that wouldn't have happened otherwise are the results of, you know, that sort of, you know, sometimes life looking like you didn't work out the way it should have to you as a human, you know?
Yeah. And I was reminded of another passage in Power of the Spoken Word by Scovel Shin. And it says, again, she's a Christian, so she speaks in those terms, but all that the kingdom affords is yours if you give infinite intelligence right of way, for it is already supplied a lavish supply for every demand, but it must be fully trusted. It must be fully trusted. So I feel that phrase, what is for you will not pass you by, helps you fully trust that what you want is coming. And I love, you know, when you did that research, Collin, and it said that piece after that quote has to do with action, moving toward it. Yeah. So in the so that's, you know, action's magic word. It's very important to do the next thing, next right thing, so to speak.
Indicated thing.
Yeah, indicated, that was what I was looking for, the next indicated step, you know, instead of just sitting, you know, in an armchair eating potato chips, it has to do with, you know, keep moving toward your vision without fear, and it must be fully trusted. So I believe that phrase helps that trust.
It reminds me of the Wayne Gretzky, the professional hockey player quote too, that gets quoted all the time, which is, you know, 100% of the shots you don't take don't go in. And
so good.
I don't think that either of those quotes mean that you should like go out and, you know, struggle really hard to get something. What they mean is that if you, and there was a point where I was teaching acting to some adults in Cincinnati, Ohio, when I was living there at one point in my life. And to my sort of surprise, like all of the students initially said that they wanted to move to Los Angeles and be professional actors. And I was like, oh, okay, reset. Like, I thought this was just going to be like, you know, you wanted to try it out, you want to be fun, but like everybody here wants to be a professional actor. Okay, we'll run the class that way. But so I did one class where we didn't do any scenes or monologues or anything. I just talked about my experience, you know, having been to New York and then briefly, you know, pursuing acting for a little bit after getting an acting degree. And I said, look, so here's the deal. You know, part of being a professional actor is moving to New York City or Los Angeles and just living there. Like, you'll have days where you're too tired to go to an audition. You're too tired to, like, you know, send your headshots out or whatever we were doing back in those days. You're just going to have to, like, you know, you'll have a cold and you'll be, you know, you'll have to take care of yourself at home and just watch TV all day. But like staying in Los Angeles or staying in New York and staying committed to your journey, even though you're not doing anything specifically that day that's like, you know, finding an agent or, you know, getting a big role in something, like just being there is a hugely important part of being an actor. In fact, it's probably more important in the long haul than, you know, any one specific action of like, you know, emailing an agent or checking the listings of auditions or whatever. Because if you tell yourself, well, this is never going to work, I'm not going to be an actor, and you move to some city where there aren't any acting opportunities, you know, then you've actually, that, you know, like that's what so many people do, that sort of thing. And then when they tell the story, it's like, well, the universe prevented me from becoming an actor. And it's like, but you were in Los Angeles and you moved to Billings, Montana. Like, you moved to where there would be no auditions. You know what I mean? You told yourself it was over. Like, that wasn't the universe telling you that. That was you misinterpreting circumstances and deciding how it was going to go. You know, you were deciding you weren't going to get acting opportunities anymore. If you'd stayed in Los Angeles, you could have walked down the street and who knows who you would have bumped into, you know, and like, one conversation leads to another and you make a friend and then they put you in touch with what, you know, I mean, when I moved here, I was trying to find a band, you know, I was trying to find other musicians to put a band together with. And there was, I don't even know, 3 years where I didn't find anybody. And, you know, I completely thought I was going to have to use Craigslist or like go to shows and see other musicians and meet people in that way. And I had this day job for a corporation. And I was like, well, there's no way I'm going to meet my bandmates there. And of course, that's where I met my bandmate. Like, you know, Gabriel is my primary bandmate. I mean, that's where we met, was at that day job that we had at that point. You know what I mean? So it's like, just by being here in Los Angeles, I met, you know, and just, I wasn't out specifically looking for my bandmate that day. I was going to my day job to pay my bills to live here. And yet that is the whatever the conduit that the universe used to bring Gabriel into my life. So
which goes back to that whole what's intended for you can't pass you by,
yeah,
right?
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
I like that tool, Kelly. That's a great one. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm going to put that on a piece of paper and put it somewhere. It's a great one for us to add to our toolbox of phrases that work.
So I guess at the end of it all, like, so was Carrie Fisher's character right or wrong?
Well, I mean, what I love about the phrase is it's simple. And anyone who knows me knows that simple is good for Collin, because Collin has a lovely habit of complicating things that don't need to be complicated. But I do think it's a little more complicated, because my response to that question would be, if Sally believes what Carrie says, then what Carrie says is going to be true. Mm-hmm. If Sally maintains the faith that I know I'm supposed to have, you know, a good, healthy romantic relationship in this life before I pass away, I just know that, and I don't know how it's going to happen, I don't need to know how it's going to happen, then I believe that Carrie Fisher's character will be wrong. But I do think that that's the kind of scary part of the responsibility we have. Like, in some ways, I'm always shocked at like how easy the art of allowing is. Like, if you really think about what is the art of allowing, it's really just, it's almost like a lack of doing something. It's getting out of the universe's way. It's just not putting up blocks, basically. Don't put up walls. to block your abundance. Like that's the art of
Or
allowing.
helping
So,
those walls come down
right.
softly, at helping them come down. Yeah.
So I'm fascinated by like how simple that can be. And yet, the flip side of that is if you can very easily block something. It's very easy for us to allow
we
it,
do
but
it
it's
all
also
the
very easy
time
for us to block it.
with different things.
It's recognizing what those blocks are,
Yeah.
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 you know, because they've been constructed over time. So we don't, it's like a dimmer switch, you know, I mean,
Well, and that's what's
if it
hard.
gradually goes down, you don't really notice that it's going down.
Like when I bump into somebody who says something like that, and it happens all the time. Like this isn't like a once in a blue moon experience. Like in the course of my life, I often have a conversation and someone will say something to the effect of, you know, something like, well, I got injured. You know, I was really into sports when I was in high school, but I got a knee injury, so I had to quit sports forever. People just say stuff like that, like it's like you know, like, oh, it was sunny yesterday. Like I'm like, oh my god, dude, like that's such a universal statement, but that's you. Like you don't know what miracles could be there if you just, again, like you don't have to do anything other than just like let that wall down. Like you don't have to figure out how it would happen. You know, like people. One of the arguments like against like when people are like cynical and they don't believe in law of attraction, it's like, you know, they'll say to me like, oh, so if I'm like 54 years old, then I could like play outfield for the Boston Red Sox? Like, really? See, it's not true. And I'm like, yeah, that's our problem is like, as humans, we get so specific into the details of like how it has to be. I would never say that. I would never say that like a 54-year-old could, you know, become a everyday player in the outfield during the regular season of the actual Boston Red Sox. However,
They need someone though.
What's that?
They need someone though. Anyway, go
well,
ahead.
and think about it. The new movie right now that came out, American Underdog, is a great movie that kind of
the Kurt Warner thing,
that talks about this situation. Like,
well, I think where I land on that is that's coming at it from the wrong angle, because what you're saying is, well, if I want this experience, which we've talked about before, what you're really looking for is the feeling of that you think that thing will get you. But even if I'm looking for the experience, like our father, Kelly and mine's dad, is a huge NASCAR fan, and I mean, I feel very strongly, whether he'll ever admit it or not, that part of him wanted to be a race car driver. Like he wanted to do it for a living, part of him at least, and he will most likely never admit that, but Kelly had this idea one year for a Christmas gift for him of like, there are racetracks around the country, like the NASCAR tracks that people actually, you know, race at, the professionals, where you can buy this package deal thing where a professional, you know, race car driver, you know, who's retired or whatever, will actually put you in a actual NASCAR car, race car, and drive you at like 200 miles an hour around the track 3 times or something like that. Now that's not becoming a race car driver.
No, but it's really close to the experience that most people have.
If you listen to my dad talk about that experience, he talks about it like winning the lottery, like all his dreams come true. It's just like, it was the best thing that ever happened to him. His emotional experience was so overwhelmingly like positive. So, I mean, that's what I'm talking about. It's like, but if you have this belief like, well, I wanted to be a race car driver when I was a little kid, but it never worked out, so I can't ever do it. You're not going to find out about that deal that they had at the racetrack. Your daughter won't think of it as a Christmas gift idea. You won't ever. And so like, it's not that, I don't know if my dad has regrets about not being a race car driver or whatever, but I mean, I know that experience was overwhelmingly positive for him and wouldn't have happened if we all had this like limited thinking of like, well, he's not a race car driver, so how could he ever drive in a race car, you know? And things like that are happening all the time, but we may not be able to think of them right now, specifically the how in the moment. And if that's what you're going by, then it's like, oh yeah, okay. If in order to prove the law of attraction is true to you, then I have to literally go out, find a 50-year-old man on the street and somehow convince the Boston Red Sox to put him in the outfield every day. You're right. It's not going to work.
So many other examples that we could use that the law of attraction works. So Kelly, I think going back to your question, I think we decide what's true for ourselves. Like Sally could be like, you're right. you know, someone else is going to, and then never gets to meet the man of her dreams. Or she can be like, that's your opinion, and I don't agree with that, or I don't want, it doesn't feel right for me, and then moves forward with, like she was saying, going through that mourning period, and then starts dating again. And in the movie, she ends up meeting or end up being with someone that's in and out of her life, and very happy that she's with him. So we get to choose. I think that's what it comes down to, is really.
That's a great answer. Yeah.
I love that what's intended for you can't pass you by. It helps soften my resistance and reminds me of what's possible.
I mean, the other thing you just made me think of, Stephanie, with the film, I mean, you kind of blew through it pretty quickly, but the man that she's going to be happy with, I mean, this is a fictional story, but the man that she's going to be happy with for the rest of her life she already knows him. Like,
how many
she's
times
sitting
has
there.
that happened?
Yeah.
And at the time he's married.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
He's happy in a relationship. So you never know.
So again, like, if Carrie Fisher's character is like, well, to demonstrate that my belief is not true, you have to go find Sally a man this moment in my Rolodex that she does.
I love that she pulls that out.
That's such a great metaphor for that Rolodex, which, younger people won't even know what the heck that was. We don't.
I know, what's a Rolodex?
Yeah. Before we could put everything in the world on a computer disk. That Rolodex is a great metaphor, right? Because it's like, to me, that Rolodex kind of, it's Carrie Fisher built that Rolodex, her character, not her person, but her character built that Rolodex with all those names in it because she was afraid that she would run out of men, right? Like she would forget someone. Or she would forget, yeah. And that she couldn't trust the universe to bring the right guy at the right time. If ever she was single, she had to have like this drawer full of names that she had written down of men she thought were good men that could be dated or whatever. And it's like, yeah, you need to put that Rolodex away.
Well, then the other friend who was like, when I was single, I knew a lot.
Yes, that's so true too.
I didn't even think about, there was that point of view that we didn't even focus on. She was just believed in the fact that there were a lot of great single men out there, and she was going to meet one, and she did, because obviously she was married or something she met someone. One and she married one. Yeah, exactly. So it comes, wow.
That's an excellent point.
They're both sitting there, polar
and they're
opposites.
On the opposite sides of the table.
And here she's in the middle, and she gets to choose which one.
That's cool. Wow, cool.
I think it seems like we're getting to the wrap up of the final.
I think we just wrapped it up.
Part of the discussion.
It's a great place to stop.
So I'll do the outro, but now I'm gonna play the scene for people again so they can watch it or hear it.
Cool.
Everything we talked about. But we want to thank you so much for listening to the podcast today. If you listened on one of the podcast platforms, thank you so much for watching us. If you watched us on the Co-Creation Station YouTube channel, thank you so much to Dr. Kelly Worster, my lovely sister, for being our guest again today. And thank you so much for liking us, subscribing to us, giving us a review, whatever you're able to do. We really appreciate you doing that for us. Kelly, if people want to get in touch with you, what is the best way for them to find you online?
Facebook is really the best way right now. And it's facebook.com/DrKellYmaine. So it's Dr. Kelly Maine.
All right. And Stephanie, if people want to find you, where can they do that?
On the web, www.powerinjoy, POWERINJOY.com, and same name on Instagram, @powerinjoy.
And you can always contact me on, write me a message or follow me on, or both. On Instagram, I'm @Collin_Daniels_Worster. Collin has 2 L's and Worster is WORSTER. Thank you so much again for watching or listening. We wish you a very prosperous, happy, abundant week ahead. We'll see you next time on Co-Creation Station. And we'll leave you to watch or listen to this amazing scene from When Hammer Met Sally one more time. We'll see you next week on Co-Creation Station.
Pockets, okay? Mommy, why do you go through his pockets? You know what I found? No, what? They just bought a dining room table.
He and his wife just went out and spent $1,600 on a dining room table. Where? The point isn't where, Alice. The point is he's never gonna leave her.
So what else is new? You've known this for 2 years.
You're right. You're right. I know you're right.
Why can't you find someone single? When I was single, I knew lots of nice single men. There must be someone. Sally found someone.
Well, Sally got the last good one.
Joe and I broke up
What? When?
Monday.
You waited 3 days to
You
tell
Joe's
us?
available?
Oh, for God's sakes, Marie, don't you have any feelings about this? She's obviously upset.
I'm not that upset. We've been growing apart for quite a while.
But you guys were a couple. You had someone to go places with. You had a date on national holidays.
I said to myself, you deserve more than this. You're 31 years old.
And the clock is ticking.
No, the clock doesn't really start to tick until you're 36.
God, you're in such great shape.
Well, I've had a few days to get used to it, and I feel okay.
Good. Then you're ready.
Really, Marie?
Well, how else do you think you do it? I've got the perfect guy. I don't happen to find him attractive, but you might. She doesn't have a problem with chins.
Marie, I'm not ready yet.
But you just said you were over him.
I am over him, but I'm in a mourning period. Who is it?
Alex Anderson.
Oh.
You fixed me up with him 6 years ago.
I'm sorry. God. All right, wait, here we go. Ken Darman.
He's been married for over a year.
Really? Married.
Oh, wait.
Look,
I got one.
there is no point in my going out with someone I might really like if I met him at the right time, but who right now has no chance of being anything to me but a transitional man.
Okay. But don't wait too long. Remember what happened with David Warsaw? His wife left him and everyone said, give him some time, don't move in too fast. 6 months later, he was dead.
What are you saying? I should get married to someone right away in case he's about to die?
At least you could say you were married.
I'm saying that the right man for you might be out there right now, and if you don't grab him, someone else will, and you'll have to spend the rest of your life knowing that someone else is married to your husband.